"Excuse me, I think you're in my seat," the woman in the navy blue suit said sharply, not even looking at me as she tapped her long, polished nails on the armrest. I looked up slowly for my boarding pass. "I'm sorry, this is 1A. That's my seat." Her eyes flicked toward me, one quick glance that held years of entitlement. "I don't think so," she snapped. "First class is an open seating. You probably meant economy, dear." Her tone was sugar and venom. Passengers around us started pretending not to listen, but every ear in the cabin caught the words. I felt my chest tighten, heat rising beneath my skin. Still, I kept my voice steady. "With respect, ma'am, I paid for this seat." She laughed, cold and hollow. "You paid for it? You?" She tilted her head like she was analyzing a puzzle she couldn't quite solve. "No offense, but maybe you're confused about your row." I held her gaze. "I'm not confused," I said quietly, "but I think you might be." That line caught her off guard. A ripple of tension spread through the aisle. The flight attendant froze mid-step, and for the first time, the woman faltered, her voice softening just a touch. "Look, I'm just saying, people like me usually sit here." I smiled faintly. "Funny," I said, "because people like me own this seat." Her jaw dropped. The silence that followed was so sharp, it hummed. "Hello, everyone. Before we begin today's video, I want to thank you for your support, love, and kindness. We wouldn't have come this far without you. Subscribing is one of the best ways you can help us. It's quick, free, and allows us to continue to bring you great content. Your support means everything. Let's keep this channel growing collectively. Where are you watching from? Drop your city and country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's get back to the story. My name is Amara Lawson, founder and CEO of Airline Airways, the youngest black woman to own a private commercial airline in the country. But none of that mattered in this moment. Because in this moment, I wasn't the CEO. I was just another woman boarding her own flight. Quietly. The irony? I had designed this flight's interior myself. Every seat, every light tone, every little scent in the cabin came from my team's design studio in Atlanta. And yet, here I was, standing at the front of my own aircraft, being told by a stranger that I didn't belong in a seat I had paid for. The woman, later I'd learn her name was Tracy Hall, gave a small laugh. "I think you're lost. Coach is down that way," she said, gesturing behind her. I could feel the flight attendant, Maya, shifting nervously beside us. "Ma'am," Maya said quietly to Tracy, "this passenger has confirmed seat in 2A. Tracy's smile tightened. "Then someone made a mistake," she said. "I've been flying this route for years. I always sit in 2A. My fingers tightened around the boarding pass. The humiliation wasn't new, but it burned all the same. The murmurs, the stares, the little whispers of disbelief. And beneath it all, that ache of tiredness. The exhaustion of having to prove, again and again, that I belonged. "Please," I said softly, "I'll wait until you're done." Tracy blinked, confused by my calm tone. Then she smirked. "Good. At least someone knows their place." As I stood aside, Maya whispered an apology and checked the manifest. "Ms. Lawson," she said under her breath, "your name is right here. You're 2A, but she won't let me move her without the captain's call." Passengers were watching now, recording, whispering. Tracy was busy adjusting her sunglasses, acting as if she'd just done the world a favor. "I'm sure it's a clerical issue," she said to no one in particular. "People like that always find loopholes to get into first class." I could feel the words like knives. People like that. And for a moment, I wanted to just walk away, to sit in coach and let it pass. But then I looked around, saw a young black teenage girl sitting with her mother in 3B, watching the scene unfold. Her hands were clenched on her lap. Her eyes said everything. Please don't let her get away with this. And suddenly it wasn't about me anymore. I nodded to Maya, who was on the verge of tears from embarrassment. "It's okay," I whispered. "I'll handle it." I walked down the aisle, slow and composed, and pulled out my phone. I typed a short message to my operations director. "Captain of Flight 227. I'm on board. Cabin incident, seat 2A. Handled quietly." Within seconds, I saw the notification pinged as read. A minute later, the captain's voice came to the intercom. Good afternoon, passengers. This is your captain. We'll be experiencing a short delay before takeoff. We appreciate your patience. Maya exhaled. The young girl in 3B watched intently. And Tracy? She rolled her eyes. Oh, for heaven's sake, she muttered. Can we not delay for some clerical nonsense? I have a meeting in Dallas. Then she added with a mocking grin. Maybe if certain people stop pretending to be what they're not, flights will be faster. The captain stepped out of the cockpit. He looked at me, then at Tracy. Ma'am, he said to her, can I see your boarding pass? She handed it over, indignant. Of course. C2A as always. He looked down, then frowned. This says seat 3A. Her face froze. That's not possible. There must be an error. He turned to Maya. Miss Lawson, he said respectfully, please take your seat. A stunned silence fell. Tracy looked from him to me, her jaw tightening. Wait, you know her? She demanded. The captain smiled faintly. Yes, ma'am. I do. Everyone here does. I gave him a small nod and sat down gracefully, silently. Tracy stood frozen beside me, red creeping up her face. But I didn't gloat. Not yet, because sometimes the deepest lessons aren't shouted. They unfold. 10 minutes into the flight, I could feel eyes flicking toward me, some with guilt, some with curiosity. Tracy hadn't said a word since takeoff. I pulled out my tablet, opened a file labeled Airline Expansion, CEO's signature, and began reviewing the document. The young girl from 3B walked by on her way to the restroom. She whispered as she passed. I saw what she did. You didn't even yell. That was brave. I smiled gently. Sometimes silence makes the loudest noise, I said, but fate wasn't done yet. When we landed, the real twist began. As the seatbelt signs went off, Tracy finally turned toward me. Her voice was sharp but shaking. I suppose you're happy now, making a scene for nothing. I closed my tablet and looked at her calmly. No scene, I said softly, just truth. As she scoffed and gathered her bag, a uniformed man in a navy suit stepped onto the plane. He stopped at my seat, saluted, and said, Welcome aboard again, Ms. Lawson. The shareholders meeting team is waiting in the VIP terminal. Tracy blinked, confused. Wait, what? The man smiled politely. Ms. Amara Lawson, CEO and founder of Aerolink Airways. This is her aircraft. Her face drained of color. Her lips parted, but no words came. The young girl in 3B looked up with wide eyes, and in that moment, for the first time since I'd boarded, I allowed myself a quiet smile, because justice had wings. Tracy didn't move for a moment. She just stood there, clutching her designer purse like it could shield her from what had just unfolded. Her lips trembled slightly as she looked from me to the man in the navy suit, then to the passengers who were now staring with a mix of shock and embarrassment. You mean she owns this? She whispered. The uniformed man, Mr. Daniels, my operations liaison, nodded respectfully. Yes, ma'am. Aerolink Airways is her company. She built it from the ground up. The cabin seemed to hold its breath. The flight attendants froze mid-motion. Even the pilot, still in the cockpit doorway, had a faint smile tugging at his lips. Tracy's face drained of color. Her confidence, the arrogance that filled the aisle minutes ago, seemed to melt into carpet beneath her feet. I didn't know, she stammered. I just thought. I raised a hand gently, not out of anger but weary grace. That's usually how it begins, I said quietly. We assume. We think we know who someone is before we ever listen or look deeper. She blinked fast, the sting of shame coloring her cheeks. And in that instant, I saw something break, not in a cruel way, but in a way that looked almost human. As the passengers began to gather their belongings, whispers filled the cabin. Wait, that's the CEO. She handled that like a queen. Man, that woman really messed up. Tracy's trembling hands tried to zip her bag, but the zipper caught. Her fingers shook so badly she dropped it. The noise echoed, sharp and hollow. I bent down, picked it up, and handed it to her. Her eyes met mine, searching for ridicule, for anger. but all she saw was calm. "You don't have to fear me," I said softly. "Just learn from it." She swallowed hard, her voice breaking. I'm so sorry. I shouldn't have said those things. I didn't realize." "You didn't have to realize who I was to treat me with respect," I replied. That's the part most people forget. Outside the aircraft, cameras were already flashing. The media had somehow caught wind that Airline CEO had personally flown on one of the commercial routes that morning. And now, thanks to passenger social media clips, the internet had exploded. By the time we reached the VIP terminal, #AirlineCEO was trending. One headline read, "Passenger denies seat to airline owner. Instant karma at 30,000 feet." Another said, "Grace under fire. CEO responds to humiliation with poise." And then the video started surfacing. Clips showing Tracy telling me the seat isn't open for confusion. Clips of me smiling silently as I stepped aside. And the moment the captain revealed my identity, captured in crisp HD, watched by millions, the public's verdict was swift. Comments poured in. "That woman just embarrassed herself in front of the entire world. That CEO deserves every bit of respect. She didn't even raise her voice." Power doesn't shout, it just owns a plane. By the time Tracy checked her phone, her face was pale as paper. Notifications flooded her screen. News outlets tagging her name. Strangers calling her out. She turned to me in the terminal lounge, tears trembling at the corners of her eyes. "Please," she said hoarsely, "can you help me? I never meant for this to happen." I looked at her for a long, quiet moment. Behind her, the glass walls of the terminal reflected the bright Aerolink logo, the same one I had drawn by hand a decade ago on the back of a napkin, when no one believed a black woman could own an airline. "Sometimes," I said, "we all board planes we don't deserve to fly, until we learn humility." Her eyes filled. She whispered, "I don't even know how to apologize enough." "Start by meaning it," I replied softly, "and by remembering that dignity isn't granted by status. It's reflected in how we treat people who can't return the favor." A week later, the viral story had reached every corner of the internet. Talk shows, business podcasts, even motivational speakers were talking about the woman who owned the airline. But for me, it wasn't about going viral. It was about something deeper, about how we see each other when the world isn't watching. I received an email one night from a girl named Chanel, the teenager who had watched everything unfold from seat 3B. Her message said, "Ms. Lawson, I just wanted to thank you. I saw how that woman treated you and how calm you stayed. My mom always told me to never let anger define me. But seeing you made me believe it's possible. I want to be like you one day." I stared at the screen for a long time before replying. "You already are. Chanel, grace is the quiet strength that moves mountains." A month later, during an investor conference, I was giving a speech about leadership when I saw someone in the crowd. Tracy. She was sitting quietly in the back row, wearing a simple outfit, no flashy jewelry, no designer shades. When I finished, she approached me hesitantly. "Ms. Lawson," she said softly, "I've spent the past month thinking about what happened. I watch that video every day. I reached out to schools to speak about bias and respect. I don't expect forgiveness. I just wanted you to know I'm trying to be better." I studied her for a moment, then smiled. "That's how change starts," I said. "Not with apologies, with transformation." She nodded, tears shining in her eyes. And for the first time, her smile looked real. The video of Flight 227 didn't just become viral. It became a symbol, not of humiliation, but of dignity under fire. And yet, behind every viral headline, behind every meme, there's a truth. The world tests us in unexpected ways. Sometimes, it strips away the titles, the wealth, the comfort, to see what's left of us underneath. That day, the woman in the white blazer tried to take my seat. But in doing so, she gave me something far greater. A reminder that true power doesn't need to announce itself. It simply is. And as Aerolink Airways soared to new heights, I made sure every one of our training manuals carried this single line. Respect is not a class of seat, it's a class of heart.